Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. In today's episode, we will be discussing MobLand Episode 8, an episode called Beggars Banquet. Joining me again is Darren.
G'day there, Victor.
And I'm your host, Victor. And on this podcast, hopefully introducing all of you to something new. A watch along, usually going week to week, sometimes a binge, but in this case, a week to week. And on this podcast, wrapping up a lot of finales this week. I'll be having a separate episode discussing the finale of The Last of Us. And I honestly was not planning to discuss the show at all, but Darren, I know you haven't been watching it, but in a season that I think is absolutely terrible, last week was one of the best episodes of TV I've seen in years. So I'm like, dab gummit, they've sucked me in. I'm going to have to talk to at least about this one episode. But I mean, in a way, the part of the reason I want to talk about it is how that episode is so brilliant and how the adaptation, I think, in general, is such a miss, a complete miss. And in a way, that episode just shows kind of the mistakes I think they're making in adapting the story. And it's a very controversial season. It's based on the second video game, which is very controversial. No spoilers here, but people who know the video game know that it's very divisive what happens over the course of that story. But absolutely brilliant hour of television last week. So they got me again. I'm going to have to talk about it. So expect an episode later this week discussing that.
Tell me, Victor, can you watch that episode as a standalone episode without watching the rest of the season?
You can. Emotionally devastating. It's about being a parent. It's really, really fantastic. But anyway, yeah, so you can watch it on its own if you'd like to. But there is some, obviously, that context. And of course, also another finale this week, the finale of Your Friends and Neighbor. And of course, 1 week from now, the finale of MobLand as well. Before we get into, I want to get your general impressions of this episode, Darren. But before we get into that, 3 things I forgot to mention last week. I think we discussed these off mic, but bring it into the fold because I think some of them are going to pay off in this very episode. One of them was that Maeve mentions to Kevin that your other brother might be the one who's going to take control of the family. And Kevin says, this is last week's episode, Kevin says, my other brother is dead. And she goes, no, your other brother. And we speculated on what that meant, whether that means Eddie, because we know that Conrad has had a relationship with Kevin's wife. And once again, that might be play into some of the things we see this particular week. The second thing that I should have spent more time on last week is the fact that Harry at one point is talking to Freddie, who's his contact inside of Richie's organization, and asks him, do you know who the snitch is? And he says, yes, I do. And then during this conversation, he apparently hurls him off of this parking garage that they're at. And it quickly makes an exit beyond that, presumably to cover up who that rat is. So now, of course, we know that Harry knows who the rat is. And I'm going to ask you directly when we get into it during the breakdown, who you think that is. There is basically stated in this episode who that is. I'm not sure if we're supposed to take that at face value or not, but we'll make that part of our conversation today. And the third thing I wanted to bring up was the titles of these episodes. I hadn't really been looking for a pattern in the titles of the episodes. But of course, this way, and I totally forgot to mention last week's episode, Helter Skelter, of course, the very famous Beatles song, Helter Skelter. And this week, the episode's called Beggars Banquet, which is one of the Rolling Stones' most famous albums, has Sympathy for the Devil on it. And also has, it's also the name of their record label, Beggars Banquet Records. And of course, there is a song on that very album, Darren, called Jigsaw Puzzle, which of course is another title here in the title. So then I went and looked at the rest of the titles of the previous episodes. And we have Rat Trap, which is a song by the Boomtown Rats, also from the 70s. We have Funeral for a Friend, Elton John, also from the 70s. The Helter Skelter song, obviously. And I looked at next week's title, and it's The Beast in Me, which of course is an incredible song, if you don't know it, by Nick Lowe from the 70s, I think also. But great British songwriter, Nick Lowe. And great song. Also covered by Johnny Cash and as part of those American records towards the end of his life. And of course, an episode called The Crossroads, which, I mean, that's the Robert Johnson original, but covered famously by Eric Clapton and Cream in the 70s as well. It doesn't cover everything, though, by the way. We have Plan B. I could not find any, British acts that have a song called Plan B, not a big famous anyway. Sticker Twist, also couldn't find anything. And Antwerp Blues is an album by Miles Davis, but Miles Davis is not a British artist. So, like a lot of things in the show, like half of a theme going on here. I'm not sure what it all means, but I don't know if you have any familiarity with any of these other songs that might complete the pattern.
I'm not massive on 70s music like that, but yeah, thanks for the education. That's really cool. Yeah, again, you'd think that would be a little bit more obvious in the show that they're referencing these tracks. Yeah, I like it.
And the only other thing I want to call out is that I do like they're using much more obscure music and more contemporary music. I do like the tracks they use. It's not all contemporary, by the way. Sometimes it's like some deeper cuts of like proto punk music from the mid 70s, early 70s that are closing tracks. So I actually really enjoy the energy of the tracks that they're picking. But to your point, they're not using these songs that I just mentioned in their titles. They're using these very obscure British acts in there. But I do appreciate that they are at least introducing us all to some new music. I've Shazammed some of these songs. All right. Before we get into the breakdown of the plot, what was your general impression of this episode?
General impressions. I liked it. Okay. I'm in MobLand now. It's the second to last episode, so I'm invested. I have many issues with the show, as you know. But things are happening, and yeah, I'm positive towards it, even if some of the choices, especially towards the end, just baffle me.
Yes. This show is such a roller coaster for me. I was really trying to vibe with the show, and this has happened to me multiple times now. I think 3 weeks in a row, where I'm getting into the show. I'm on board for the first 2/3 of the show. And then by the time I get to the end, it's like the opposite of a show that has like a really good hook that wants you to get to the next episode. When I get to the end of the episode, I get so frustrated. I'm like, why are you doing this show? Why are you doing
this?
But I'm like, there's almost a good show here. What's happening? Why are we talking? Why are we paying attention to these things? And that's my general impression here as well. I did like a lot of this episode, but man, we have to talk about what happens towards the end, because it's like two different shows competing with themselves, and I don't understand what we're spending time on sometimes, especially at the end of this episode.
I've got to agree. Yeah.
All right, so let's break it down. We start with this conversation. Conrad meets with Eddie in his bedroom, and he wakes him up and says that they need to have a conversation. We're not privy to the conversation, but we do find out at least one thing he mentions to him later, which is that he's been asking him, what has Maeve been up to this whole entire time? And Eddie tells him something, and we'll find more details about that during that chaotic final moments of this episode. We might save some of that for then. Does he also, do you think, Darren, that he also maybe hints that he might be his dad?
Oh, that's a good question. That didn't come to me when I watched it, but geez, that first shot of Conrad standing by the window, backlit, it's just like it's like operatic, or I don't know what they're going for, Shakespearean. It's just so artificial. But I didn't think that. But there's been sprinkles all through this episode and last episode about Eddie and who is his real father. So yeah, very interesting.
And then Eddie is traumatized by this. He actually goes and communes with one of the Doberman pinschers, asking him, which one of us is freer, you in your cage or me in my own version of this cage? Do you have any sympathy for Eddie here at this point?
Oh, he's so hard to have sympathy for, isn't he? I mean, he's just such a rat. But why not? Yeah, let's go with it. Why not? Because, he's been so powerless.
Yeah.
Apart from the opening episode where he actually does something, the only thing he's done since then is have sex with Harry's daughter. And
yes,
he's so powerful. He's locked in this house. He's been controlled by Maeve in some kind of faux mother sexual relationship that's also very weird, and he's got nothing. And also, yeah, we can
if Gina has the electric complex, he has his Oedipal complex, but with the grandmother, he skipped the mom, went straight to the grandma.
Yes, very astute. Yes, and and the grandmother, we find out, has seen them have sex as well, which is also very disturbing.
Yes, she brags about it too. It's very strange. I have a whole section at the end where we to talk about what's going on with Maeve in this episode, because there's an actual sexual competition between her and Gina. It's really bizarre stuff going on here. Next up, we see Bella threatens Paul, this henchman they have, to get a 100-second head start on her scheme to go blackmail her dad, apparently. And she vaguely threatens Paul, and he complies and lets her leave. And of course, ignores the call from the security guard just to give her enough time to get away. There is a little comedy here, though, when Paul goes and tries to talk to Conrad, and Conrad's like, "Do not interrupt me." And then later on, he's like, "Okay, what did you want to tell me?" "Oh, I told you. Bella left." "Why did you tell me?" So anyway, Bella's off the compound.
Paul's fun. He gets a few comedic outlets in this episode, and especially that toilet. How's that toilet that he sits on? So weird. I've never seen anything like that.
I love the toilet. It's just like, what an incredible piece of, I mean, I assume it's in the house. I don't think they designed it. It's probably the house they're renting out. But like, that's your throne right there. The throne room.
So good. Could really do some thinking there.
So that conversation that he almost interrupts is Harry, of course, talking to Conrad about going to meet with the Mexicans about this new deal they want to offer them about the fentanyl trade. And they want Serafina to be in there. Conrad's going, of course. And Conrad's on board with going, even though it seems kind of sketchy. But as long as they change the place where they're meeting to a different, I guess, more, a place they trust more, this other pub. Mm. And interestingly, during that meeting, Conrad just insults Jaime's dad the entire time. But
very strange.
Strange decision.
Look, he chooses the pub because they pour a good pint, but he orders a whiskey. I thought that was a bit odd. And then, you're right, just insults him again, insults his father. I mean, which is the one thing that gets to him. But the sit down, he was by himself. Jaime was by himself. I thought there would have been a bit of a equal number of heavies there, but he was by himself, and he just was very interested in Harry, of all people.
Exactly. That's the interesting power play there. Two things happened here that I thought were interesting. One is that I thought it was just Maeve trying to get into Kevin's head last week in saying that your sister's actually the one who's getting groomed for power. But then at the actual sit down, Conrad doesn't really do anything constructive, but lets her take the lead with the negotiation, which I thought was an interesting situation. So maybe Maeve is kind of right that he doesn't see Kevin as a good future leader for the organization. And then, of course, but most importantly, is that once everything's cards are on the table, he just turns to Harry and says, "Harry, were you the one who really, infiltrated that, and rescued her all by yourself? Now I understand why Kat's so interested in you." And of course, as he walks out the door, also, subtly gets a little mind virus going inside of Conrad's mind, saying like, "Oh, Harry, I understand why you're so desperate to leave this organization. It seems like you guys are really like not managing things well," which of course is getting inside of Conrad's head. So that was very interesting, that whole dynamic. And once again, this is a problem, I think, with the show in general, is that the Harrigan family is honestly the least interesting characters on the show for me. So, I'm still not sure if we're supposed to be rooting for them or not.
Yeah, and the fact that Conrad is just swinging for the fences all the time, raising his voice, being very rash, and Harry and Tom Hardy just doing just minuscule eye movements, and they're just so captivating in the scene.
Yeah, that handsome potato face he has.
Yeah, gorgeous.
The world's most gorgeous potato. And then Lopez eventually accepts Harrigan's deal. He calls up Harry directly, interestingly, once again talks to Harry only. The deal apparently is that they'll pay twice what Richie's paying for the fentanyl. And he says, but you have a rat in your organization and you need to get rid of that rat. And then we can talk.
Mm.
He keeps this to himself, by the way, right? When Serafina asks him, what did he say? He says he took the deal. He doesn't mention the whole rat part. Immediately after this, Harry calls the lawyer, if you notice, O'Hara. What did you think of this?
Yes, the lady lawyer is back again for her
Yes.
little cameo every couple of episodes. And Harry is very interested in her and sets up a meeting. So we're supposed to think that he thinks that she is the rat, I'm gathering.
Right, perhaps. I think the show is giving us a few different possible theories here of the case, and that's definitely one of them. And he seems very interested in what she says about who's the guy they killed.
That's Archie.
Archie, yeah, and what she says about Archie, that maybe Archie was right about all of this. And then that's when he's like, "We need to have an 11 o'clock meeting." Interestingly, immediately after that, like seconds later, Kat calls him. And she wants to meet at 5 o'clock the next day, and he can't be late. So I have a feeling that all this scheduling is going to be a problem in the next episode, perhaps.
Yeah, very interesting where Kat is going to fall in this series, and perhaps she was going to lead into the next season if they've been greenlit for a second season, I assume.
I mean, I haven't had an official green light, but I'm assuming there's going to be a follow-up, considering the show continues to do very well in the ratings. So I think that they are definitely going to have a second season of this one.
Yep.
Who knows when, though? These are very busy.
Online.
I mean, Tom Hardy's very busy recently, so who knows?
Yeah, true. As you say, he's out from under the thumb of Marvel,
Venom.
so he can do some other movies.
And of course, this is Janet McTeague playing Kat once again. By the way, she's in the new Mission Impossible movie. She plays the Secretary of State, so just saw her again just this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, she has a job he has to do, and he is under her thumb. So that is definitely going to be yet another thing that is going to be probably, I would assume, rolled into season 2. I can't imagine this is going to be all crammed into next week's episode.
Mm.
Also, he's very busy in this episode, as is usually the case. Conrad wants to talk to him and mentions to him that, you know what, I gave you a little bit of extra money. And Conrad and Harry's like, oh, don't worry about that. But you can tell that Harry's uncomfortable, that having this spotlight on him as to where his loyalty may lie or whether he has doubts about the organization. He does not like any of this. And you can see him getting very uncomfortable multiple times in this episode with the direction that some of the decisions that are being made and some of the threats that are being made against his family. So all of this he's not comfortable with. And I think, again, we're supposed to be questioning as to whether he's ready to turn his coat on them.
Yeah, I did enjoy this scene. I did enjoy how Tom Hardy doesn't speak around the fact, even though Conrad loves to do that and put things in riddles, he just brings it straight out that, are you questioning my loyalty? And I like doing that in real life when people talk in riddles and they're trying to find out things. It's just like, let's just straight to the point. And you ask me what you need to ask me, and then we can move on.
And it's interesting that he's being such a straight shooter, because there's a theory of the case here that Harry may have been the leak this whole entire time.
That's right. And I think you brought that up in the very first episode, possibly, that he could be the leaky bit in this organization. But the breadcrumbs are spread wide, and it could be anyone at this point.
There's a lot of possible, suspects here, surprisingly. Meanwhile, Tattersall, who's just been introduced last week, has had a very public event where he's, decrying the murder of these cops. Of course, this is all a performance here, because, of course, he knows exactly what happened, and even maybe was part of this setup to start with. And he goes and threatens Alice, tells her he knows her actual name, which, of course, is a threat in a way that if I know who you are, then I know where you live. And, things can go very badly for you potentially. And that's one possible subtle threat. Another one, of course, is that I know you've taken 50,000 pounds twice before to plant evidence. And hey, all I want you to do is plant evidence again. Of course, part of the reason she's reluctant is because she's thinking, I've just been invited to these people's house, and these are dangerous people, and they may know who I am. Am I going to get murdered in that house? And he's like, no, we'll be there to protect you. And I honestly thought that maybe he was just going to leave her out to dry. But it turns out that maybe there was some kind of actual plan here.
Yeah, that's all that he wanted, wasn't it? Was to become the public face of this operation, and it seems like that's where he does his best work. And I really liked Alice's predicament that she finds herself in, and going to the house is terrifying.
It is really terrifying. And that part, even part of that dinner conversation is actually pretty good. And it's when Seraphine is grilling her, but we can save that for that late final moment in the episode.
Hmm. Hmm.
Meanwhile, and here's where I start to really scratch my head as to what's going on with the show. We're a week away, and Bella and Kevin are both on side quests here. The Kevin one, well, let's take them one at a time. So Bella is meeting with this French fixer guy again. She really wants to. It looks like the dad is on board with meeting with this. I thought she was trying to blackmail him into meeting with this Syrian arms dealer, but apparently he does want to meet with the Syrian arms dealer. And he's just waiting for her to set up the meeting. And finally, she's like, Dad, I'm going to set up the meeting. But then we see during the actual meeting later on that Antoine has this hidden camera recording everything. And my question to you is, does she know that he's recording? Because when she recorded the previous meeting on her purse camera, he stole the recording and then Harry had to retrieve it. So now is he doing this behind her back? Oh, I'm so confused by all of this. Or if I'm even supposed to care about what's happening, but I assume we're supposed to care what's happening, right? Because they keep bringing it back up again. So what did you think about this whole thing?
I am confused. I don't care. Sorry.
Right, right.
This side quest, we don't know enough about her as a character.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't care. No. And is that going to tie into the finale? Yeah. Why do it? I mean, there's plenty of other juicy stuff in this show than to show this little interaction. I've even lost track of who her dad is. He's a politician, right? And he's introduced her to like the foreign secretary or someone.
He's apparently has, yeah, he's someone in the government, and I thought he was maybe the foreign secretary or someone with power, but no, he's just like works with him. So now he can make the introduction. I don't, and once again, maybe I assume this has to tie into the finale. I do not know how it would possibly intersect with the rest of the story. I don't know how that would be the case, but I just don't know. I mean, obviously this is pertinent because they keep bringing it back up again. So I'm like, okay, but I don't understand. And I assume this is just going to roll over into season 2 because is this going to tie into the end of this season? I don't know. And I still don't understand. To your point, I don't even understand. To the previous point, I should say, I don't even understand why we're supposed to be paying attention to this. I'm very confused.
What I did enjoy, yeah, well, I did enjoy when she introduced herself as Harrigan, and obviously the name Harrigan has a lot of connotations of organized crime, and the politicians just rolled with it. Or this lady politician, she was just like, right, gotcha. This is our world. This is we're into this now. So that was interesting to me, and that was basically it.
Meanwhile, Kevin, much more interesting. This is much more an interesting side quest here for Kevin, and the way that he is, in a way, bonding with this old man, and they are really commiserating about where they are in their lives. And I think that there is some appreciation. Like Kevin at first is very much questioning whether he's going to actually follow through with this, and I thought this was pretty interesting, that the way he's pretending to be an Uber driver, and then he's in his house, and then even when he reveals who he is, and things start getting threatening, it still works pretty well. And then I really like the fact that he basically has this emotional breakdown at the end, and it's when the guy comes back, his very abuser comes back and is trying to now console him. He's like, that's a bridge too far. He shoots him right between the eyes. So I did like this whole sequence, but I still don't understand why we're spending time on this at this point in the show.
I really enjoyed that scene. I thought it was from a better TV series because it just felt like
one, for sure,
very different one. It felt like I like not knowing what's going to happen, and it felt like he should go in and he should kill this guy and get his revenge. but that didn't happen straight away. And the fact that he broke down, that they both broke down, I thought was quite captivating.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where the scene was going to go. And it's just, you put yourself in a position where you're in a very awkward meeting with somebody and they get up and leave, and then you're supposed to leave, but you don't. It was really good. And the fact that his abuser comes and comforts him is shocking. And I think the reason that he did shoot him was that he asked about his son. Do you have a son? Do you have a child?
Yeah.
And that was the thing that pushed Kevin over the edge, because we're supposed to think that no, he doesn't have a son, right?
Yes.
And that's a real sore point for him, and he just gets rid of the guy straight away, which, yeah, very cool scene. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and it shows you some psychology, what's going on inside of Kevin, and the tumult he has with his relationship with his own dad, and of course this abuse he had when he was younger, and how he even. It's interesting because at one point this guy says, "I have a bad memory. I forget so many things," and it seems hard to believe that this guy would have forgotten, given what we're outlining here. But then the irony of it is that Kevin says, I didn't remember it either, until Harry brought it up. And then it all came flooding back. So it's this very interesting thing that they've both conveniently forgotten this really horrible thing that happened, obviously. But then, of course, like you mentioned, I think very importantly that he is questioning whether he has a son at all. And him bringing it up is like a way for him to express that rage he has. Harry may very well have to clean this up too, so it's going to be very, very. He's got a very long checklist for next week, especially given what happens at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I do enjoy Tom Hardy cleaning up the mess. We haven't seen enough of it in the last couple of episodes. I guess when he just went crazy in Antwerp, that was a big mess he had to clean up. I like these little ones. I like these little ones that he has to clean. You know, yeah. I still his cleaner that needed her mother to be put into the rest home, that got disappeared, because the real story was about Kevin getting his revenge on this guard. So
he does talk to her, right? He actually talked to her last week. That's how he found out where this guy lives, or his name at least.
Yeah, right.
So that's one way that they brought her back up again. But yeah, I did like that. I agree that there's a different version of the show once again where it's really about, and that would be intriguing to me personally. Maybe not the audience for this show, which is massive apparently, but a version of the show where it's like you are the mob cleaner, and it is just these little power plays and the threat of violence and carrots and sticks, and it's like, hey, you can make money on this, or you can get a broken leg. And that type of thing, which I think would be fun. And then he gets in you could end up like the reveal that he has to sometimes be incredibly brutal, torturing somebody, murdering people, and innocent people potentially. And you're like, wow, this guy is not the nice guy I thought he was before. So that's a different version of the show. But honestly, that is what maybe in my mind I thought would be what the show would do. And maybe it still will be someday. We'll see. It'll probably come back, and maybe that's what we end up seeing.
Yeah, because the role of this cleaner, I mean, you put yourself out there every week to clean up these problems that they have, but also you have the inside knowledge of everyone in the organization. So you're so valuable. So that's why Harry's his confidence needs to be so sure with Conrad, because he knows everything. And
he has to come off
sides.
Absolutely. And he knows everything. He's buried all the bodies literally. So if you don't trust this guy, he has all your secrets. So he has to be, your trust in him has to be absolutely bulletproof. And that I think is fascinating, right? That whole idea of being that person and being constantly at risk and having a family and they're at risk too is really interesting. And I feel like that's right there. That's the drama that's available for this show, and it's not interested in that. So anyway, that's my critique. But but in general, I do enjoy this idea of this character for sure, and I like his performance.
The fact that his performance is fantastic. Yeah, and the fact that the other mob leaders want him to work
Sure.
for them.
Exactly.
But surely they know that he cannot leave. The only way that he can leave this organization is if all the Harrigans get destroyed.
And this is why, I mean, we'll put, I'll just seed it now and we'll talk about it very briefly because we're almost at the end of the episode. That's where I think that maybe Harry has orchestrated this collapse of the family for exactly the reason you said. If he betrays them, then he can't be the bulletproof stand-up guy that everybody wants. The only way for him to escape and not be threatened by the Harrigans and escape and be trusted by everybody else is for no one to be left. So maybe he is orchestrating the collapse of this family. Once again, if that is the case, that is the more intriguing version of the show. But if that is the case, we should have been in on this the whole time because that's where the suspense comes from in watching this plan play out, right?
It's a very cool idea. And yeah, you're right. Keeping it from the audience would be, I don't know how I'd feel if they finally reveal that. I mean, there would be clues all the way back,
right?
That you're going to be clued in on that. Yeah, interesting.
It's like the whole Hitchcock, analogy he always makes that you can have a version of a movie where everyone's playing cards and there's a bomb under the table and the bomb goes off and the audience is shocked. So it's just like, I can't believe that happened. I wasn't expecting that. But then there's a version of the movie, which Hitchcock prefers, where it's like you show them the bomb under the table, then you let them play cards. And now you could just have them play cards like a regular card game, and you are on the edge of your seat the entire time because now you, as the audience, are doing all the work. And same thing. If here it turns out like, haha, I was the one who orchestrated all of this, you might be like, wow, he's so smart. But you just get that one twist at the end. And if we discovered like 2 episodes in or 3 episodes in that he's the one who's orchestrating all of this, then like with the whole entire time, we're like rooting for him and we're terrified he's going to be found out. And every time there's a clue that points in someone's direction, it's like, oh my God, are his fingerprints on that? Are they going to know that this leads back to him? And once again, maybe for me personally, my preferred version of this story, but we'll have to wait and see how things settle next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so now let's talk about Maeve.
Oof.
Mostly I want to talk about the last scene in the episode, but before we get there, some of the other things she does here, obviously she threatens Gina in the stables, says, I've been watching you guys on camera all night long. I know everything you did from every angle. Ugh, gross, right?
What was those finger signs that she did? What was that supposed to
I don't
mean?
even know what that was exactly. God knows what they were doing in there.
Let's watch that twice going, what? Okay, all right.
And she's like, stay away from my Eddie. Stay away from my Eddie. Or I'll eat your eyes out if you even look at him, something like that. Of course, which is very funny because then she like sends Eddie to go like console her later on. And if Gina takes her at her word, she's like not even going to open the door to him. But that's earlier on. Of course, her this performance is insanely over the top here. I guess it's very much, it's not working for me. I know some people love this. It's like the reason they're watching the show. This performance is not working for me. She later on, she threatens Conrad in their spa, their special sauna time that they have together when she's like, why did you invite Alice over? I mean, if you take Conrad at face value here, he invited her over because he is interested in her. Didn't he suspect that she might be? I mean, she should just say that. I'm feeling her out. I think she might be a spy for the police. But he doesn't say that. And then Alice shows up for this very awkward dinner. Turns out that Maeve has lots of recipes that use eggs. Lots of recipes that use eggs. I like that at one point Conrad's just like, stay on target, Maeve. Stop with the egg recipes. What's your point? And I didn't even understand this metaphor at first. I'm like, oh, she's talking about like his bollocks, right? To use the British vernacular. It's like, and then it sounds like, no, then she's talking about the whole man at one point. I'm like, how did the egg has evolved over the course of this metaphor? What the egg even means. But eggs are fragile is the main takeaway, as are men and their egos and their testicles. What did you think about this whole egg sequence? It's pretty hilarious.
Look, I was watching it. My wife walked into the room and she saw Helen Mirren there and she's like, why does she look like that? And so I was like, well, okay. I'm not going to comment on her appearance, but yeah, she is this character and she is just wild and crazy and huge in every scene, in the sauna scene, in the horse stable scene, and it's just you just have to go with it. She is the wild soap opera character and she's just doing it. I couldn't go with the egg reference either. I was like Conrad going, "You stay on target. I've lost you." Um, but the dinner table scene, yeah, it was like a play. It
Yeah.
was,
Yes.
and I'm not. uh, It, it didn't ring very true to me. And then
Yeah.
they let old Alice just wander the halls
Yeah.
by herself.
Yeah.
Everyone was awkward there. Everyone didn't really know what. I mean, I think they all knew that Alice was there to be grilled,
Hmm.
but for what reason? Yeah, and Alice felt like she was in the firing line the whole time anyway. Um, it lost me a bit, I got to say.
It is an interesting metaphor for what's going on in the family, though. And once again, the show hasn't even made this clear that we're supposed to feel this way, to be honest. But in a way, you see like Serafina starts saying, Alice, I'm sure you must have been wondering, why am I driving all the way out
Mm,
here? Who are these people? And just a Google search would have,
mm.
you would know some of the history of the family. And then you could have easily been like, oh, I don't know if I want to go there. I'm a little uncomfortable. I have COVID, or come up with some other excuse. My kid got sick, something, right? So everything she says makes perfect sense. And the fact that Alice was just like, sure, I'll be right there, is extremely suspicious. And in the middle of this, all of a sudden, Conrad and Maeve are going at it. And of course, Serafina is like right on target. And so in a way, it makes sense. It kind of maybe is telling us that this generation of leadership has run its course, and it's time for new leadership there, to say the least. But we do find out that Conrad's not a total idiot, maybe, maybe let's say, because it turns out that during that questioning of Eddie all the way at the beginning of the episode, that he had asked her about what Maeve was up to, and he says that you're the one, Maeve, who tipped off about Archie's burial location, that you told Eddie, no, not Eddie, you told Richie where Serafina and
Mm.
Brendan were, and she's just like, she's the one who was supposed to get murdered. And of course losing Serafina there, obviously, at that point. And this all ends up with them like pointing a knife, and then she breaks a bottle. It's like it's really just really incredibly silly. It's like the worst version, like you said, speaking of a play. It's like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but even worse, even more awkward. It would have been especially funny if this was an actual innocent bystander invited to dinner and they got caught up in all this. Then it really would feel like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Oh, it's just wild. I mean, her breaking the bottle. Was that a full bottle or a half full bottle? I mean,
Yeah,
you need practice doing that. She must have done that many times in her life to be able to do that.
I
Yeah.
guess they did. I mean, that's
Yeah.
maybe how they met each other back in the day. But if this is true, and once again we have other breadcrumbs like you mentioned as to who might actually be the rat here, and maybe it's Eddie who, and maybe that's something that's intriguing here as well. That he says not only has Maeve mentioned, which of course she did explicitly tell Eddie about the whole thing where she is setting up, revealing, like she had the phone conversation right in front of him about calling Richie and telling him where that they're going to be in
Mm,
Antwerp.
mm, that's right.
So Eddie is familiar with that. But when Conrad accuses her of saying you tipped him off to Archie's burial location, if that's the case, then obviously she's the rat. I do wonder if all of this is on her. I also have very little sympathy for Conrad here, to be honest, because I can't assume that what is her motivation here, that she thinks that he cheated on her or something, or she's jealous of him sexually. I mean, he even says it. He's been with her for 60 years. Like, don't you know who you're married to at this point?
Oh, the fact that Conrad just flies off the handle. I mean, how can he be the boss of this organization if he's just so lax and just
Mm-hmm.
so emotional? They both are. Bizarre. Look, it's a bizarre scene. What I did enjoy is when the cops come, right?
Yeah.
So, and that really reinforced my idea that this was a play because there was a beautiful shot where the cops entered the room,
Yeah.
all their torchlight was shining on the
Yeah.
table, and there was a shot just of the whole table, and it just looked like a stage. I'm not sure whether that was supposed to look like that, but it was real cool shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. And Conrad says, no, we're going to just pretend we're having a regular dinner when they
Mhm.
come in. And I did love that, just the image of these cops coming in and everything's just by flashlight. And they're just sitting there, right? Like as if they're just like mannequins. By the way, Eddie has the most heinous sweater I've ever seen in this scene. I was like, what is he wearing? I somehow didn't notice it until the very, very last shot when they were, and it's zipped up like right up to his mouth. It's just bizarre. Like I don't understand what I. It's probably very expensive, but it looks absolutely terrible.
He's a fashion icon in this whole series. I
I
mean,
guess
from the
so.
very first episode, I mean, he has his own style. That's just, I thought he would be doing more stuff because he's an interesting person.
Perhaps, perhaps.
Horrible person, but very interesting. And he feels like he's just absolutely shocked and embarrassed by his grandparents, parents. I mean,
As he should.
he's just over it.
Yeah, as he should be. As he should be. I mean, I don't think this is a good performance, but I don't think the show's doing him any favors here either.
And poor old Jan, I mean, the
Oh,
situation that
Jan.
she's in, I mean,
Jan really is just like jaw dropped, looking back and forth the whole entire time.
and she's just like, she's so used to police barging in on her dinners or her house or her relatives. She's just, again, oh my God.
Meanwhile, of course, Alice has stepped out of the room and is in the hallway grabbing that martini glass to get the DNA off of it. And Harry immediately intercepts her. Of course, he's smart enough to be watching where she goes. And I guess maybe that's the assumption that everybody has in that room, that someone's doing their job. It speaks to that fact. And interesting scene here where he says, "Oh, so that's the deal. You're going to plant the DNA." And Alice says, "Yeah, isn't it interesting that with all the things Conrad's done, he's going to go down for something he didn't do? But that would be
Hmm.
Maeve's DNA, right? Not his DNA, correct?"
There was a cigarette or a cigar in there that he put out
Oh, okay.
in the martini glass.
I
Yeah,
see.
which was
Okay.
Maeve's
Yes.
martini glass.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So I guess they get both of the DNA in one shot. I forgot about that, about the cigar, of course. And he just says, "Go. You can go." So what do you think that means? Once again, that could indicate that he is setting something up of his own. Did he swap out the cigar or the glass, you think, by chance? That's another part. I mean, I wrote that down, by the way, in my notes, but I'm like, I don't know. Would he know exactly what? I mean, there's other things he could pick up. Like, would he just know somehow intuitively that she's going to want the cigar and swap it out? Because that would be clever, right? Could you imagine that they plant the DNA and it exonerates Conrad? That would be pretty interesting, right?
I don't think it's going there. I mean, that seems pretty far
Yeah, yeah.
for me. I think the fact that he was like, how far away are they? Because he knew
Yeah, yeah.
the cops are there. So a minute away, he kind of feels
There's
like he
not
can't
enough. There's
do
no options there.
anything. Yeah, there's no options. Yeah, he's just got to take it.
I thought that she might be. I mean, he's smart though. I got to say, this scene actually worked for me in the fact that when she says they're a minute away, he keeps her talking for a little bit because he's like, "Is she just bluffing me?" And because she could be, but then when he hears the sirens approaching, he's like, "Okay, I've made my decision." And I mean, once again, like you said, legitimately, that moment you could just read it at face value, which I think is how we're supposed to read it. That what other options does he have? I mean, he could like try to cover up for them, but then and does he even want to at this point? I mean, once again, me watching this,
Mm.
I'd want out of this ridiculous family. I have no idea how they've achieved any success based on what I've seen here.
Yes, that's right. That makes more sense that he's like, okay, that's how you're going to take him down, but I'm going to find my way out of this. And then I've got plenty of job offers. And
Many, exactly.
yeah, and that's a way out for me as well.
I hope that's the case, by the way. And I hope that if this show comes back, we have an option where we have him as fixer for another family or for a cat or for who knows what kind of situations he could be in. I mean, I could just see him like being like a fixer. I mean, I would like, honestly, I'd like to see like a procedural TV show, like old school TV, where this guy works with for Cat, or Cat just like, I'm going to call on you whenever I want, and you have to be available to me. And in between, he's just doing his thing in different circumstances. I mean, it could be purely procedural. It does not have to have some kind of broader, conspiracy involved. But I don't think that's the direction the show's going in, because we have all these like additional threads of his friendship with Kevin and his loyalty there, and whatever's going on with Bella and her dad. And so I don't think that's going to be the direction of the show. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see the the Harrigans come back next year, which I don't know if I want to see any of that.
Of course, no, they can't get rid of, especially Pierce Brosnan and
I know.
Helen Mirren. Surely, unless you replace them with equally massive names, they're here for good.
And she's doing 1923 on Paramount. Maybe they get her for 2 for 1. I don't know how they get her on.
That's with Harrison Ford, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, very different performance. A very different performance for that. She's very, it's her living on the rustic West, and she doesn't, threaten anyone's bollocks on that show. Not that I know of, anyway. I haven't watched all of it. During the cops, cops arrest the family. At that point, they arrest Maeve and Conrad. Only for some reason they don't get these other people for, I guess you would assume, aiding and abetting or something. You figure they'd be cases. I mean, there would be cases that could be filed on many people just to make sure that they're not organizing behind your back. I would have done that if I was them personally. Even if you have to release them within a day, at least you have a day to get your ducks in a row. But this whole scene is pretty funny, where Maeve starts singing the Irish Revolutionary Anthem, and Conrad starts singing along. I guess that's how they met each other back in the 60s, I would assume at this point. But that is where we leave things in this episode. And there's no scenes. On my app anyway, there were no scenes for next week. Normally they show you scenes for the next week, and I did not see any. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I always turn it off.
You skip them anyway, yeah.
No, I don't like seeing what's going to come next week. Yeah. It's fun. It's funny. I'm speechless when they start singing. I'm speechless. It's that type of show. Of course, they start singing an Irish anthem, and all the cops just watch, and it's.
But Conrad starts singing along with her, right? So that's just once again, it's that loyalty she has to him somehow. I do like earlier in the episode.
I like the loyalty.
I mean, I guess that's what they're trying to indicate there. I do like earlier in the episode where Richie was saying that to the cop that that she thinks that he still had a thing for her, but that he loved his wife, who she murdered brutally. So that he was Vaughn, I think her name was. So that he always, had loved her, was like the love of his life or whatever. It didn't really seem that way, by the way, when they were together, but it is funny to see that. But I just found the whole thing very funny, where there was somehow, and maybe this is just supposed to indicate her persona again, Maeve, that she just thinks that he has this loyalty to her because they had a thing when they were younger. It's just so silly. That whole part of the show is pretty silly. I was watching the credits all the way through, which I usually have been skipping the past few weeks, and just looking at what the correlations here. And I did like the fact that Maeve, when Helen Mirren's name is on the screen, there's like a dresser and a mirror, and there's a Medusa head reflected in the mirror. So I guess she's Medusa. She'll turn them all to stone, I guess, by the end. She'll kill all these men around her. Maybe she's the one who'll be the last man standing. I got to tell you, if she's in charge of this organization next season, I'm not sure that's the show I'm going to be tuning in for, but we'll see.
Is this the post credits or the opening credits you're talking about?
Opening credits. Yeah.
Opening credits. Yeah, right. I just love that song. I've always got the subtitles on, and I love reading the lyrics to the song. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's a great.
And I don't pay attention to the visuals, although I did like the dogs that were up on the dinner table eating the leftovers, and that did play into a few episodes ago. That was a great image.
All right, couple things. Do you have a theory? Who's your leading suspect as far as possible rats can be? I guess that's the thing we're supposed to be caring about the most in the show, I think.
Well, let's go through it. I mean, it can't be the lady lawyer. She's doing nothing.
Right.
Tom Hardy would be very interesting the way that you've explained it if he
Mm-hmm.
is the rat. Maeve is too obvious.
Yep.
Eddie's got nothing to do.
Yep.
Um, I said Kevin weeks ago, and he's kind of I think he's got a real reason to be a rat because he's got
Right.
this son that's not his son.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes the most sense to me. And the fact that there is no other breadcrumbs, that's the only one. But that's a real good reason for him to be the rat. So I'm sticking with Kevin. Who do you think?
I'm thinking, Kevin. I like the Kevin theory for a long time. Kevin, because he's kind of so out of the loop recently, and he just seems to be so distracted with his own issues and maybe this is something that they see in him as well, which was part of the reason I thought he might be making some kind of power play. But now he doesn't seem to be in the loop enough to make the power play.
Mm.
So he's kind of fallen down that ranking, especially after this week. But you make a really good point that he really doesn't have any other claim potentially, and he might be seeing Eddie being as a usurper and maybe Serafina as well. That's been a threat to him as well. So maybe this is kind of a power grab on his part. So that would be interesting. I really like, I would really like to see my version of it where it's actually Harry the whole time, and all of this has been him, working simultaneously the rat and the fixer so that he can, have clean hands by the end of this. And that would be an interesting way to go.
And that would be cool for season two. So he would swap sides and he
Yeah.
would be on Kat's side, and then the Harrigans are going to try to bring him down.
Right, right. And then he could be like, like with the whole cat situation, him having to be forced, like he still looks innocent because it's like, well, do you want your kids to be murdered in front of your eyes? Like, I had to, what else could I do? They were serious. Obviously, they killed one of them. They would have killed them both. And I guess that wouldn't matter to Maeve, but it would have mattered to Conrad.
Well, there we go. That's very interesting. We've talked a lot about this episode. We went off this show a couple of weeks ago, and now we're
Yeah.
back on it full bore. So it's very
Well,
interesting
we're
how
getting to
things
the
work.
end of the season, right? So we had to spend some time with that, I think.
It's great.
Do you want to talk about Murderbot? I want to talk about one thing on Murderbot, just one thing,
Mm.
which is so this was another, for me, real brief recap here. Not recap, just a review. I thought it was very entertaining, fun to see this like development of the side characters like that. I like that character was very suspicious. Turns out that he's just like lusting after his missing leader, smelling her pillow while she's not there. And a very cool final moment. I like the fight sequence when he can like predict what the more advanced robot's going to do ahead of time so he can avoid the shot. But then, of course, there is somebody who's piloting this, and who could it be? Sneaks up behind him and gets the drop on him just at the final moment. Great hook for the next episode. My question for you is, these episodes are way too short, right? This is too short. Yeah.
Far too short. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the show. It looks so good. I think the effects look really fantastic. Where he was approaching that new settlement, it just looked stunning. Lovely sci-fi, but there's not enough. There's not enough there. I want more.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, we probably will not discuss murder. We will continue to discuss Murderbot on the show, but we won't discuss it next week. I'm pretty sure we're going to fill up our time talking about the finale of MobLand. But then we will dip back in. Once MobLand wraps up, we actually don't have that many things to talk about other than what's in theaters, which of course it is the summer season. But we'll probably catch up. And honestly, we probably need 2 or 3 episodes in a batch to discuss, because this like 20-minute episodes are I think too short. And so we'll see. And that might have been a mistake in the way they structured the season, to be honest. And of course, I know we both saw Guy Ritchie's A Fountain of Youth.
Ooh. Ooh, I wondered whether you're going to bring this up.
It's so funny. During the pandemic, of course, that movie with The Rock on the riverboat,
A Jungle Cruise.
Jungle Cruise. I remember seeing that because it premiered on Disney Plus. I watched it with my daughter during the pandemic, and I'm like, man, what a waste of money. Look at this thing. I got to tell you, that movie has some really fun action sequences and some really cool like riverboat stuff that happens in there. I mean, that is it's not a good movie. That movie makes this movie, the Fountain of Youth, look like a masterpiece. That this movie is
Gee.
horrible. What is happening? They probably spent like 200. Well, they shot in like 10 different locations. This thing must have cost a fortune, and it is awful. Like, what happened?
The locations were the best bit of it. I really enjoyed the different locations. The pyramids were cool. The raising of the Lusitania, I thought that was a cool idea.
Yep.
And I was in this movie for the first sequence, the first
Yep.
car bike chase, really cool. The car chase, cool. But yeah, somewhere where they were raising the ship, I was like, it's just another sequence, exactly like the sequence that we just saw. He's
Yep.
rescuing, he's finding an artifact, and then he's getting ambushed by the baddies. And it just was the same thing over and over and over and over again. I think I watched it in 3 different instances because I was just like, is anything different going to happen? And then you told me, oh, watch the last bit, maybe. And no, it wasn't very interesting at all to me, and it was baffling. But I like the idea, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Fountain of Youth. I mean, it's an interesting idea. It did remind me a lot of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Right. Very much so.
But
Yeah.
yeah, especially with the effects at the end, with the
Yeah.
if you drink the wrong one or if you have the wrong intentions. Natalie Portman is great in everything, so she was fine. But John Krasinski, I didn't really get him. I got him in The Quiet Place. I thought he was
Yeah.
excellent in that, but in this character, it didn't do it for me at all. But just the repetitive nature of these huge set pieces, and as you say, it would have cost a fortune,
Yeah.
and just a waste of money. I like value in my filmmaking and in my life in general.
Yes.
To get your money's worth, and it does. There's no money's worth here.
I have to tell you that even the opening sequence, the bike chase through wherever they were, Thailand, right? I found that to be really unimpressive, and I really set things off on the wrong foot. Not that it was a terrible sequence, but I just felt like have Mission Impossible. Like, this movie has been made in the context of the Indiana Jones movies of the 80s, by the way. The 80s. These movies are 35, 40 years old now. And the Mummy movies and, the Mission Impossible movies. And you can't just do like a pretty good sequence. You have to have some, like, to your point, there's got to be like one of these that feels like original, feels different in some way. And all of it feels so recycled. They yada, yada. Like, it's just hilarious. Like, these same people show up at the pyramids, and you just think about the logistics of, like, you couldn't come up with one clever explanation as to how they were able to, even though they're the most wanted people in the world, they were able to just like cross a border, and then they're waiting there for them. It's like they couldn't intercept them on the way. Like, there's nothing. At no point did anyone try to solve any problems in the script or come up with any kind of unique ideas. And that's the thing, right? If this was like a $15 million movie, I'd be like, well, good try, not a bad facsimile. But I just think, as I'm watching the movie, I just think about the amount of money that's wasted on this. And I'm like, this could have been like 25 small movies that could have had original ideas. And you made this. It's embarrassing for everybody involved, I think. Even Natalie Portman, by the way, who like was so great in May, December. I thought she was so bland in this movie. So bland. So it's a different type of movie, obviously. John Krasinski, same thing. I think he could be charming in different things. This is like him just trying to be charming. It's like somebody who's trying really hard to do a Harrison Ford impression or something. It's just like really not good. Not good. Anyway, another stinker to add to the list. All right, Darren, we will meet again next week and discuss. We might just a reminder to the audience and to you as well that next Saturday there is the premiere of Mountainhead, the new Jesse Armstrong movie. So maybe something we catch up on as well and touch base. We may have to save that conversation for another time, depending on how in the weeds we get on the finale of Murderbot of MobLand, I should say.
MobLand. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
I can't believe I'm saying that, but I am.
Yeah.
Where would I see Mountainhead? What streaming service?
Oh, Max. It's on Max, which you have.
It's on Max. Awesome. Great. Good.
Or HBO Max again, right? So anyway, whatever it's called now, to this week, whatever they called it this week. But All right, Darren. Thanks again for the conversation.
Great. Thanks, Victor.
All right, take care.